hear all of you. And now that I have your names and email addresses, then it means that you'll be on my mailing list.
I would like to thank my very old friend Irene for moderating this event. It was necessary because it came out of coffee meet. I was also issued by resolution. I would like to extend gratitude towards Dr. Joan Buri from Empisha Hospital for supporting us. Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Health Group, Mr. Luquaro here. Nice to have you. Also, with you guys, we have crawled, we have struggled, and we have came a long distance, more than a decade, with these partners that we had, wonderful people. And I'd like also to welcome Mr. Ashok Shah. Sir, nice to have you here, nice to meet you. The Group CEO of AP Insurance, and Mr. Kaumbeovino. 10 years ago we started with Gertrude's, thanks to Mr. Gordon who brought us here, and we grew with him. He's my mentor, and I've learned a lot from him during those days. We are a hospital information system provider. Basically, it was our focus, but now we have grown onto something more dynamic, more organic. We have become more service oriented, so that's where we realized, and the realization came through our partnership with Meridian in 2016 when we went live with the cloud version of the HIS, and today we have Meridian all the clinics, 3 hospitals that is running there, and it gave us a lot of learning on the way. We also have Chirumalan Medical Center, which is a psychiatric hospital completely running on that platform. And we are also growing, and we are doing a lot of interesting stuff. That's why we now have a new face we call Transact. So Transact Cloud Services is everything about connecting 2 entities, may they be a payer, a provider, or insurance companies, or or M-Pesa, or banks, whoever. It is a platform that will allow you to connect to each other. So look out for Transact. We are going to come in a bang. I cannot say bang. Okay. In an amicable manner, and you will find us everywhere, wherever you are needed. If you're a doctor, we can serve you. If you're a clinic owner, small or big, doesn't matter, we can serve you. If you're a hospital, small or big, doesn't matter, we can still serve you. If you are an insurance company, we are here for you. If you are a bank, we are here for you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will hand it over to Irene. Thank you everyone for coming here.
The first question, of course, I ask is what is happening with them, just to have an idea. What level of care do they require? The second question I ask, once I have figured out whether they can get it in a level 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 hospital, is how are they going to pay? Because that determines then where I will direct them. So if they say they have insurance, the next question I'll ask, which insurance? So when they tell me NHIF, I'll ask civil servant. And because of the entitlements that the different people have. And the reason for all this questioning is because you want a patient to go to a place where they won't have to be tossed back and forth. By the time they are calling and asking this question, they're desperate and they're hoping that you will be the final answer to what they want to hear. And so based on that answer, then I'll be able to tell them, then you can now go to this hospital or that hospital. So assuming now we have reached NHIF, it's not civil servant. The next thing I'm thinking as a doctor is, where will they get responsive service? Because at the end of the day, they will tell me they're stuck. They'll come back. Yeah. And for me, the other question I'll ask myself, do I know somebody there who will be able to support them as they walk the journey. I hope I've answered the question.
You have, because you have started the conversation on, obviously, then it tells you that we are tiered. We don't access healthcare at the same level, and we expect that. So the next question then is, are we being fair in the way we charge for services that you offer? Or are we kind of leaving out, or it's like crowding out everyone else?
I would say the answer is yes from where I sit. And I'll go back to what Dr. Osoro has said. It is not a one size shoe fits all.
Yep.
If you go to APA, you take a cover. Different schemes have got different benefits, different remits. So that largely will dictate where you go. The healthcare space has quite expanded in the recent past, almost to a level of explosion, and you will find pricing as low as $10 for a comprehensive service for an outpatient. Could be drugs, consultation, basic labs. You will find consultation all the way up to $150. Yeah. Depends on what you're seeking for, because we have nurse-led clinics. So considering that the industry is quite open in terms of accessibility, where you want to access care, the brand that you want to visit, I think that there is fairness, because say we are seated with John here, our outpatient facilities are being run by a medical officer before we refer you to a specialist. But the pricing is different. I'll be insured by resolution, and I can choose to go to Meridian, or I can choose to go to MPSHA. And the other thing is also from a regulatory perspective, if the people who used to follow their insurance products a long time ago, there's something called roaming. We used to work to use in telecoms. Yeah? And those days, the insurance company could lock you to a specific provider. But the regulator came in and said, no, you can't lock patients to a specific provider. People have got a choice. So not only from a market perspective, there is also a regulatory aspect to it that, for me, ensures that there is fairness, there is competitiveness. But there is something that maybe I will elaborate further. There is something called adverse selection, and we'll unpack it, and we'll see the drivers for that.
Okay, if you're taking notes, we will want to hear adverse selection and what that entails. Mr. Kwame, before I come to Mr. Shah, you've had the two of them, and I'm thinking what's going through your mind now. Yeah, because as a consumer, there's still, from what the two have said, there's a whole large pocket of individuals that will be left out of that. So what's your view on that?
Okay. All right. I think they're right in the sense that health demands must meet. Health demands must meet supply, and it's also a but in some ways, in comparative terms, it's a service that requires paying for, and there's some fixed costs and the other costs that vary, as they've stated. So if you talk about it, so speaking as a consumer, I'll speak in two ways. I'll speak first about the fact that if you're working in Kenya, one of the first things that's mandatory is for you to pay to the public health insurance scheme, right? Now we can talk about whether that amount is adequate or not, but basically it's a mandatory part of the requirement. So I sit in an office with 23 other colleagues, and at the end of every month, it's my responsibility as a chief executive, together with the administration team, to make sure that those deductions have been made and surrendered to the NHI. And what I'm telling my colleagues is this is necessary for you, not only because government would send you to jail, but because it helps you to get coverage. The feedback they give me is interesting. So what's the other option? The other option is to use a private health service. Private insurance service. And as Dr. Lukwara has mentioned, there are options as well there. It's not as wide as everybody would seek, but it's there. And they tend to give you a broken down service. You can choose. There's some things that are fixed and there's certain things that you can choose. And here too, there's a mixed picture. Some people are generally very happy, others are not. But I'll give, and as I end, I'll end with one thing that concerned me because it started in the last month. So every year, because it's you buy the insurance cover for a year, for instance, because I'm talking about the private side, you buy it for a year, and towards the end of the month, incidentally, for the Institute of Economic Affairs, our cover starts on the 1st of June every year. So right now, basically what we're doing is having discourse with them. But one of the most interesting things about Kenya's, or rather, the particular one that we have, is we actually have to hire an auditor to go through the claims that our insurance company makes regarding the treatment that was given to us. Because your past year's performance is what determines what the next year's premium is. So definitely that's an incentive for us to use efficiently the cover that we have so that it does not ratchet upwards our performance. And believe me or not, they have very sophisticated systems. But we found our rota, or rather the feedback that was given to us, they don't tell us who, but they tell you basically this treatment and this treatment. And some of them are so odd that I asked my colleagues, who was in hospital on this day and that day? And the person who was supposed to be in hospital, whose number is reflected, had traveled out of the country.
You know, as APA, I sit at the group level of Apollo Investments, and we've got several companies. And APA Insurance is one of the largest insurers for health in Kenya. We believe that as APA, we would like to make sure that the people we insure are properly taken care of. Doesn't always happen, but generally, I would say 99%, we do that. We make sure that we give them the service that we have promised, and sometimes above more than that. Now, the question about the regulator, that's a very difficult one to answer, because what it is that we would like the regulators to always, in fact we've got two regulators that we are looking at here. One is on this side is we're looking at the Insurance Regulatory Authority, which regulates the insurance sector, and on the other side we also have the Ministry of Health, which regulates the providers in many different ways, but not to the same extent that the insurance regulator does. Now, it's very difficult for me to answer why the regulator did not take the action that was intended for resolution earlier, or announced the closure at an earlier time. But you know, it's very similar to what's happening in the banking sector, because you suddenly find that the central bank closes a bank on a particular day, and you've been you're a depositor, not a borrower, you're a depositor, and you're left high and dry. So similarly, the same thing has happened in the case of resolution, is that the regulator had to take an action, and they took it. But as you said, as Kwame said earlier, is that a lot of people knew that there was something wrong with resolution. All the hospitals knew. All the hospitals knew. So the thing is that the red flags were out there, and why the medical fraternity did not take it up as well, or they could have gone up. There are sort of the insurance regulatory authorities there, the Insurance Association of Kenya Insurance is there, and also the other one that we should also involve is the Association of Insurance Brokers, because it's a broker and agent that takes you to a particular insurance company. So they should have been there. What has happened with the resolution is unfortunate. We do not like to see competitors go down the way resolution went down. Because when they go down, we also get a bad name. And people talk. Basically, insurance is something people need to have, but they do not like to have it because they say that it's very expensive, and on the other hand, that insurance never always does not deliver. That's the other problem that we have. There's a mistrust against insurance companies. So for us, when a company has gone down, it gives us a bad name as well.
Okay.
So we do suffer similarly to other companies as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's like the domino effect. So Moses, first of all, very briefly, I will want you to tell people the kind of innovation that you're doing in your company and how it ties into this. That's very brief. And then I'll ask you, are we doing right by the consumer? Because I'm questioning even the way we submit our premiums. The fact that we have to submit annual premiums for most of us, while in other markets they are very accommodating. You can even submit depending on how you receive your revenue or your salary. You can structure it such that you are always ahead, 1 month ahead, but you don't have to pay an annual premium. I want to ask why we haven't innovated as much compared to other countries. After you tell us what it is that you're doing, which is very exciting. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Irene, for inviting me, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So at MTIBA, so what we do is we have created a health payments platform that connects healthcare providers, payers, and consumers, and creates an ecosystem of trust between the interactions. Why is this important? You've heard Kwame talking about insurers and hospitals. Everyone is dribbling, so there is a total mistrust that what you get is actually not what you thought you were buying is not what you get when you go to the point of service. When you go to the hospitals, they'll talk about we have services and we don't get paid, and whether it is NHIF or private insurer, there's a certain lens. And Ashok has just talked about also the mistrust that the public have. And all these three parties, it's important and key that they have trust and transparency, because when that is not there, then what happens is the interests are completely misaligned. And that then results into costs going up. And when costs go up, the insurers have the lever of driving premiums up. The hospitals have the lever of driving costs up. But the consumers have no lever, because then they will be left, the ones who can't afford now, only the big corporates will be left paying. But now those SMEs and the individuals get dropped off. And so what we are doing in terms of innovation is by digitizing and creating this platform that enhances the trust, will lower the overall cost of care and empower users and empower the individuals and the insurers and the hospitals. And as a result, then by bringing the trust, drive insurance coverage. You've asked me about why it's difficult to have monthly covers and payments. And to be honest, it's shocking that we don't. And the reason is simple. If you look at maybe insurance, one of the challenges that we've had in the sector is products are very complex for various reasons in terms of risks, management, and so on. And to administer this complexity is what has held back most of the innovation that you see or the lack of the innovation in the insurance space, because then you need to digitally transform your operations. And the reason why I say it's shocking is because in this country, we've seen how M-Pesa transformed banking, including mobile lending and so on, and the innovations around it, and how transactions, it's possible to break down transactions and activity. And so from where I sit, all the rails are there in terms of the building blocks, whether it's payment, connecting the health transactions with the health payment engines. All users, everyone in this room has a mobile phone and probably do a lot of their transactions on mobile. So people have a place where they can see what they are entitled and so on. And so it is indeed possible, but also there is a regulatory component in this country where there was a drive, and I think there still is a drive to have annual covers because of you're not sure if people will then pay the 1 month and then they consume and drop off. But I do think with the technology that is in place today, with the trust and the creativity, because the products are there, the creativity, we should be able to innovate and have this much more.
Okay. Thank you, Moses. And so back to you, Conley. It's now that we have laid out what the problem is, that you have covered, but you're not quite covered in this market. At least you don't sleep comfortably thinking that what you thought you covered for is actually what you would.
The regulator must bear the blame. Let me tell you why. So just to make sure that I knew what I was doing when I came here, I went through the IRA's website to look at the reports that they give. And they give reports about claims ratios and everything else. When you look at that report, it's fairly data comprehensive. But it is intended for somebody who would like to invest, or somebody who wants to understand how much float the insurance company bears. So basically, it's intended for an insurance peer, not for a consumer of those services. So that it allows you to actually assess for your firm, so how often do they pay their claims, what kind of complaints do they have, and that kind of stuff. So basically, that's just a financial analyst's report, in my view. And I've been one, so I think I can say that without. So if they have not mandated reporting to actually show that they're troubleshooting and what kind of claims do you have from your clients, then obviously it's the rumors that we have that inform us about what the problem might be. And my view is, a regulator is one of the few, or rather, a regulator has power because they can structure incentives in such a way that market players, and we can't do without them, market players then respond in the right way. So that's one. I will not blame the consumer who's looking for the cheapest or what looks like the most cost effective, because cash is difficult to come. So you're not going to blame the consumer if they say, look, if you give us, just like most corporations and many places, you do your three farm call, right? But you decide by choosing the technical report, then you go for the financial one, and then after that you eliminate. So at all times you're not just going to leap to the most expensive necessarily. So it's upon the consumer, it's upon the regulator then to actually provide or force disclosures that allow us to be more aware. It's called about buyer being aware, at least they need to give us the specific information that allows us to make those claims for ourselves. So it's not possible. The brokers get their commission early enough, so they can leave the game, and sometimes brokers in this country, even without telling you, are actually agents, and that's okay. I mean, it's not blame. They're actually agents of all insurance companies. So what they do is, they're not covering you. What they're doing is probably going to direct you to the firm that gives them the highest commission. So with all these things being as they are, everybody faces incentives. And as a student of economics, I know that incentives are very powerful. They're not destiny, but they're extremely powerful. It is the insurance regulator then who needs to come back and say, what kind of disclosures do I give? And it should not be a standard one, because when you're buying health insurance, it's a completely different product from, say, buying a credit card or whatever else and all those other things. So I think I would place it especially that the regulator has not done well. And maybe this is a moment for the regulatory institution to ask themselves, given that this is quote-unquote water under the bridge, what would we have done better? And perhaps call this meeting and listen to us and say, if I am not a part of that sector, knew in 2020 that even if these guys gave us a proposal and it was the cheapest, we are not taking it because we were in a meeting in which a mother burst into tears for the fact that she had a car, she's in Eldoret, a child is in Nairobi, has fallen off a bike, and you go to hospital and you told, you're not going to do any stitches until you send us. So she had to send it by M-Pesa. So empty and all these other things are completely needed. So that's basically it. So that kind of information that we hear in rumors and all those other questions, it's something that the regulator should be able to pick and make real sense of them about whether they're just rumors or whether it's a real good content. So the risk profiling of every institution in a way that allows the consumer to make the right decision is something that's been lacking. So if you ask me, I'll place it entirely in the hands of the regulator.
Okay.
I'll start by saying we are guided by various parameters when we cost our services. And so, for example, the cost of consultation in MediHeal or our hospital where you have medical officers will definitely be higher than in a level 2 hospital where it's a clinical officer or a nurse-led clinic. So there are those disparities based on the quality of care or perceived quality of care that we claim to offer to the patient. Number 2, again, depending on the level of the hospital, whether it's level 5, 6, level 2, 3, even the access of the consumables that we use will vary. One, because of the kind of patients we have. So for example, I'll tell you, we do have generic medication. And if you come with a flu, I don't mind giving you generics. But if you're in ICU, I won't risk. I will give you the best brand because I want you out of ICU. If you come with cancer, and we've had patients where we will give options. And yes, generics will be at 97%, the brand will be at 99%, and you speak and educate your patient. Those who can afford or will find means will say, I don't even want a 2% chance of this thing coming back. I can't imagine going through this again. So again, also the medication we give will vary depending on the complexity of disease. Why? Because we are judged by our patients, by our colleagues, by the system, based on the outcomes that we have. Someone will say, I went and I had a heart surgery and I came out, and they'll sing about it. Another will say, my relative went there for an appendectomy and died. No one ever asks what happened, how bad was it? The thing is, I've been given the answer, and that's a bad place. They can't handle an appendix. These ones can handle a heart. I'll go where they handle a heart. So those are some of the things that determine some of the costs that we see. Is it fair or unfair? For us, the rationale is to be open and transparent when we communicate the prices. And that's why I said, for example, we'll tell you there's a generic and there's branded, depending again on the case that the patient has. The other thing, are we fleecing our fellow insurers, our payers? I'll go back to what Moses Kuria said. We still need to improve our communication. We still view each other with suspicion, but we have come a long way. And it helps that we have doctors on board even in the insurance companies, because then you can go to the point of, let's talk clinical. This is what happened, this is what happened, these are the protocols. However, some of these conversations, I would say, should happen before the patient comes to us. Not when the patient has come, they are being discharged, and the question is, why did you charge this? And so when Kwame is at the end, and the doctor has discharged and everything is done, he's told, we are waiting for the insurer. So it creates mistrust, because the insurer has trusted me to be a good ambassador for our mutual patient. However, at the same time, I also have a role to play to ensure that my brand is not blamed for delay of the patient. So you will find then we create mistrust in that regard. Conversations can be had to prevent this, and I think those are things we've already begun with various insurance players so that we can avert this. Are there bills that are sometimes overcharged? Yes. That's one of the challenges we have sometimes with our health management information systems. There are also human errors sometimes. You find a new item that was brought in, maybe someone didn't understand what it meant, because the truth is, the people who do billing are not medical. They are finance, they are cashiers. And so for us, the thing we try and do is, when the patient is leaving in each department, just check that what has been billed is what you actually used. And if the patient picks anything that's off, we immediately credit it. We do not have any conversations of no, because it's very easy to tell. It's documented in the patient's notes. Everything that we used in theatre is there. If this wasn't used, we remove it and we allow you to go home. I think Dr. Rukwaro will
I think Dr. Osoro has basically nailed the ethical part of the providers. You see, for me, number one is I look at it this way: is we are in a fraction, and this fraction, the numerator and the denominator, is 1. Divide by 1. And the answer is 1. Because for a shock, the interest should be for his insured to get the best quality service. Yep. For me is for my patient, who is his client, to get quality care at an affordable price, at an ambient, clean environment. Yeah. And I am one of the proponents of we don't need to drive the cost of care. I'm one of the proponents that healthcare is not a margin business. Yeah, I would believe is, yes, you'll be shocked that probably over 70% of the healthcare providers in this country are actually for-profit organizations. So they are in it to provide a service, and it's a human service, but they're also in it to recover their investment. Having said that, is then just like the insurance companies that I deal with, I have tired them. There are those who are very honest in their dealings. Yeah. If there is a rejection, we know it will be a genuine rejection, or if they made a mistake, they will own up to it and they will pay. Of course, it comes with its own pains. Then there are those who are number 2, just difficult. There are number 3 who are rock, and there is number 4 who are NHIF. Okay. Having said that, is that the same case. Even for me, in the healthcare industry, and you know, in the industry that you in, if you believe that every prayer is honest, straight, and ethical, then you're living in a world I call utopia. You know, even in your own organization, there's a very big percentage, double digits percentage of your own employees who look for the opportunity not to do the right thing. Okay? It is what it is. But I know that majority of the healthcare providers are not in it to fleece the consumer or the insurance company. And, you know, Irene, when you get a bill, and I can speak, I have sought services in my other life at Pisha, Nairobi Hospital at Aga Khan, and you get an itemized bill. Okay? And honestly, you would be able to say, do I have this medication? Did I go to the lab? You know, did I see a doctor? You know, some services actually we offer for free. Look, when you get into an outpatient facility, you see a receptionist. Yeah, we don't charge you. You go to a nurse who will actually pick out any issue with your vitals. We don't charge you, and we charge we start charging from consultation. Okay. As she said, is genuine prayers will actually encourage patients to go through your bill. Yeah. If you find anything that is appearing twice, you know, there are conditions, and there are doctors in here who will tell you that, especially if you're admitted, you might need to run blood sugar test thrice in a day. Did we freeze you? It's a clinical, you know, decision. But there are those who will sit in a room and write bills, because at the end of the day, and that this is where our friends on the other side also have to make a decision. You know, am I looking for them to empanel the guy who is telling me I'll charge you 300 for consultation, but that guy will sit at the back of the room, yeah, will manufacture a claim, and then you start hearing stories of fraud, whatever. In my life, I have let people go because, yeah, you came with her card because you are her daughter and you are above a certain age, and so some of us do not even tolerate those things. But having said that, is how do I look at this? There are common aspects that drive health-seeking behavior, and that's why I will come back to adverse selection. Is number one, outside general outpatient consultation, the other services, I guarantee you, are driven by the physician. The physician will mostly guide you in the hospital that you'll go to, yeah? Without even, them they don't educate you that if you go to Nairobi John Hopkins Hospital, you'll pay a consultation of 6,000, but when you go to Mr. Okwaro Clinic, you will pay 200, okay? And once that happens, yeah, you as a patient, you lose actually control. The underwriter loses control, yeah, and then the blame game begins. Yeah, I will tell you, for surgical procedures, hospitals take home less revenue than the doctor for most of them. Yeah.
How many doctors are here? Can you attest to that?
Yeah.
They don't.
Not always.
No.
And I'll give you an example. Just a common surgical procedure, CS. Just go analyze a CS bill at Avenue Hospital, at Nairobi Hospital, at Elkisha Hospital. You will see what the surgeon took home and what the doctor took home. So there are many components that come in here. So you see, once now the doctor determines where you're seeking whatever, you will find you lose control, as I said. And I like giving a perfect example. A long time ago, I went to visit Nairobi Hospital once. Yeah? And it's not, I'm not talking now here as a competitor, as a consumer at that time. My medical cover was 30,000 per outpatient. By the time I was leaving that place, I had spent 70% of the outpatient cover. What did I learn from that? Is that actually, also my underwriter should have educated me on, evaluate, because honestly, this is a benefit. It's actually, you have got a wallet, you have got 30,000 bob. When you spend 2,000 bob, it's not coming back.
So what you get is, how many did they tell me the percentage of insurance uptake in Kenya? What's the percentage?
Very low.
No?
No.
But that's inclusive of NHIF.
Yeah, remove NHIF.
Without NHIF, it's about 3%.
Yeah, it's 3%. It's like that for 22 years.
Yeah.
No, but it's a 2.7%.
Okay, there you go.
It's a 2.7% penetration rate.
Yes.
Against the GDP.
Yes.
But the thing is I think we have to understand how insurance. First thing is, as insurers, we are trying to see if we can increase our penetration. So people like Mtiba, Meridian, and so on are important. That they will help us to drive the numbers. But we are not able to get the numbers that we would like. But let's go about the, if you look at the insurance companies, we are not angels. I agree. And we have a contract, and when we issue a policy, that is a contract. And the policy states exactly what we will cover you and what we will not cover you for. And normally we would, the hospital or the provider will know, we give them an authorization and we tell them that when the limit reaches a certain amount, please get back to us, because the patient, the individual might not have, might only have a limit. But let me tell you about this last 2 years. The last 2 years, to me, is that the hospitals lost their humanity. They became, what would I say, Shylocks. COVID was something none of us imagined. And when COVID happened, all the hospitals became empty. Nobody was going into the hospitals. And as APA, we took a decision. Our head of health is there. We took a decision that we will cover every patient for COVID, despite pandemics not being covered, cannot be covered. We said we will cover every patient who has got COVID because we didn't even know. Even NHIF went ahead. The minister, the CS said it. NHIF said it that we will not provide any COVID cover to any patients. But we as APA, we decided to do it. But then we started talking to hospitals, and we found that hospitals increase their charges by 3-fold or 4-fold. Normally in a week in ICU would cost you about 1 million shillings. Because of COVID, they increased it to 3 million. And basically, when there was, we could not even discuss with them. There's one particular hospital, we were very happy that, and the person, that one of the persons who used to be in their hospital is here. We made an arrangement with them, and they basically, we told our hospital, our COVID patients, please go into this particular hospital, and we have an arrangement. And at that same time, the same hospital also gave us home care. So when a patient was, when a COVID patient was released, they would follow up the patient and the family, to see, making sure that they were all right. But what we found was hospitals would charge you if there's in a COVID ward there are 10 patients, each patient would be charged 10,000 shillings just for PPE. If the 10 patients are there and 5 nurses are there for the day, how can you charge 10 patients 10,000 for PPE, which costs you 2,000 shillings? And the usage of gloves and so on, we have had horrendous stories. And it's basically, the thing is that we have paid something like, is it 240 million in 2020 for COVID claims?
330.
So the thing is that what it is that the mistrust between hospitals and insurers is great, because what we find is that the hospitals, the problem we have is, you did mention it, is that what happens is our people deal, when it comes to payment of claims and so on, they deal with the finance guys. When we go to the finance guys and say, there's all this, these are the wrong things that you've done, you find that no, we must go to our medical team and ask them. And for COVID, we have seen people being charged 24 million shillings and enormous numbers. Their insurance cover is only 10 million or 5 million. So we go and pay the 5 million. Where is the person going to get the other 19 million?
Now, the crux of the matter, isn't it? As we proceed, it's opening up, and we now can see it's not as rosy as. My two doctors want to make a comment before I go to Kwame. Kwame, I'm coming to you because this has just opened up for me a whole can of worms.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. I think it's important that I introduce myself. My name is James Kama. Professionally, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm an insurer. Mr. Shah, you knew me when my hair was black. worked with your friend and my father, the late Robert Gacheche, Intra-Africa Assurance. I'm also, my age, by the way, I also have another degree. I'm a doctor, but not a doctor of medicine. My doctorate is known as LBE, Learning by Experience. And why is that? I am, as you see me seated here, I am 30 years old. When I say 30, I'm a person positively living with HIV for the last 30 years. So it has forced me to be able to understand health and health issues, pharmaceutical issues, and everything. And I've had all of you talk. And I'm sorry, because some of us are in the midst of it. Now, let us start. I mean, yes, and like I told you, I'm a health economist and also an activist. But this time I'm just speaking. I'm not going to bring activism yet. Yet. There's absolutely no way, and I'm also, as I'm speaking, privileged to be on the NHIF reform team, that there's a trance between the private hospitals and NHIF. Okay? So I'll start from the word go. Madam, I'm not saying you've given. MP Shah, you take the charge sheet. A pair of Panadol is 150 bob. Hello? No, please, let's get this right. Other services are everywhere. Yet, all this, there's no private hospital that is not registered under non-profit. Hello? I want us to understand some of these things. My uncle, your friend, went to India. He stayed there for 9 months. He asked for the bill. He abused the whole hospital. He called them idiots. They told him to put, because when the bill came and everybody came, he could not understand this is the bill when he's been there for 9 months. Do you know what he did? He said, because I was prepared to pay well over 30 million, he asked, do you have any patients who have not been able to pay for the bill? Okay, that's a story for another day. The issue we are having right now, and this is now where I want you guys in the industry. And by the way, before we go anywhere, let's understand you are a profit-making organization. Now, NHIF has come. NHIF is saying, let us find out why. Like she rightly said, there are different charges and everything. All those charges of consultation have never been actualized. You know, this is something that just comes out. Because you'll find the same doctor who's working at Kenyatta National Hospital charges his consultation at 2,000. Across the road in Nairobi Hospital,
20.
Hello? Are we getting together? So the issue that is coming here is that we now need to neutralize and have anything, a minimum, bare minimum of what needs to be charged. If I want to pay more, that's up to me. I'll buy a bottle of beer here at 400 bob as opposed to 200. So I think this is something that we need to know. And I think I have not had any of you talk on how, from the healthcare provider, you are going to be able
translate to good business for me, or good service. There are still times, even when you have paid your premiums, you go to, I actually was a victim of that. I produced my resolution card for dental. I'm supposed to have outpatient covered some amount. And what they told me outright is, we don't take resolution health, you have to pay out of pocket. So all I'm hearing is, we do it right, we do it right. How does that translate to good service to the consumer? And what should we be expecting from the two sectors? And then your questions. How many have questions again? Okay, yeah, everybody has a question.
So I'm really glad that Ashok Shah has mentioned that, yes, I think there are some dishonest people. Well, I'm glad that Ashok Shah has been admitted that there's some dishonest people. I still think that if the regulator had the view that if any monkey business takes place in a hospital in a consistent way, then it suggests to me that it has the approval of the management. Something would be done, it would actually reduce those things. But let me now throw a perspective. You're completely right. He said that one of the things about healthcare in Kenya is too expensive. It is. Kenya has high costs for some reason. So if you look at it, and again, I read my numbers from the economic survey, and it tells you that the number of doctors trained in a year, right, is at a slower pace than the growth in the population. What that means is the doctor to population ratio in Kenya is getting worse. And what that means is, from a market perspective, doctors have no incentive by competition among themselves to reduce your cost. No wonder they work in Nairobi, they work for the public sector, right? And then they work on the other side in the private sector as well. And from both, they make a good living. There is nothing that would change that unless doctor numbers also change. So that's a public sector problem too. It is not possible to achieve universal healthcare, whichever way, and sometimes universal makes people the impression that it will be free. I think it would have to be an assortment of what are the basic packages that people should have. That's not possible with the doctor numbers we have. It isn't. Relative to the fact that we have a population that's growing very, very, in a comparatively fast way. In I think another 15 years, Kenya will have a population of 60 million. That's not a bad thing. But if at that time we still have 10 or 20,000 doctors, which means you have one doctor for 30,000 people, we'll be in trouble. Why? Because the demand for their time and their specialty will be so high that they'll simply go back there. So I'm not necessarily saying that you let everybody study medicine, but we cannot have the number of medical schools we have in Kenya and still believe that only 500 people or 1,000 at most per year should study medicine. We need to ask ourselves, is that really true? And I think there are enough brains in Kenya to make that part of the development of the UHC over time. Of course, doctors will not accept that, because they're supposed to be very smart people, right? And they're the smartest people in every room. So that's one of the things. But that's part of the reason. Because if you go to a general clinic, you're always told that you need a specialist. And they are. But you hear that for some kind of ailments, there are only 3 specialists in Nairobi. So they're in MP Shah in the morning, they're in Nairobi Hospital. So that suggests to you that this is a structural problem in the way the medical field has been done. So part of it is public sponsoring or public investment in the education of doctors, because that's an investment in our future health. If we don't change that, you'll still get people doing that. Now, if somebody charges me 150 shillings for Panadol, this is what I'll do. And I thank God, not because I'm a supremely healthy person. I've never had to spend a night in a hospital. And I hope it stays like that. But if somebody charges me, I will shame them. And maybe we should start a portal where all we say is, look, Kwame, under what circumstances would you justify charging for paracetamol at 150 shillings per tablet? Shame them. Shame them to actually have to either justify those numbers, because sunlight is a disinfectant. So part of this is because they can get away with it, I think. So if you decide nevertheless that I just want to go to a place where my paracetamol is 400 shillings, then that's fine. You say I'm not. But if you think it's a problem, I think you should shame them. So maybe one of the things Kenyans should do, just apart from catching politicians doing bad things, is maybe taking screenshots of those invoices and putting them online, and let's have debates about what they mean.